For this case, which is a video, has no description, no backstory, and no clear reason for why the footage exists at all. At first glance, the video looks unremarkable. The quality is poor, the camera shakes constantly, the framing feels accidental, as if the person recording never intended for anyone else to see it. And yet, that lack of intention is exactly what makes the footage unsettling. This does not feel like a performance, a stunt, or a carefully planned recording. It feels like something that was never meant to leave the moment it was captured. Unlike most disturbing videos online, this one doesn't really rely on shock editing, loud sounds. It is slow, quiet, and deeply uncomfortable in its restraint. Nothing is explained. Nothing is framed for the viewer's benefit. You are simply dropped into the middle of someone else's experience, kind of like a dream. That absence of context becomes the most disturbing feature of the video. Your mind tries to fill in the gaps. Who's filming? Where they are, and why are they running? With no answers offered, every possibility feels worse than the last. The video does not ask for attention. It earns through silence, confusion, and unease alone. The video begins in motion. The camera is already shaking when the recording starts, suggesting that whatever happened before pressing the record mattered enough to keep running. A flashlight cuts through the darkness in narrow, unstable bursts, illuminating only the forest floor. Leaves, dirt, and patches of grass rush past the frame, never staying in view long enough to make sense of the surroundings. There's no visible path, no clear direction. The person holding the camera moves erratically, sometimes speeding up, sometimes stumbling, as if reacting to something outside the frame. The audio is just as disorientating. Heavy breathing dominates the recording, uneven and strained, occasionally interrupted by the sound of footsteps scraping across the ground. No words are spoken and no explanations are offered. For over a minute, the video refuses to give the viewer anything concrete. The camera never lifts high enough to show trees clearly, let alone a horizon. This creates a strange sense of confinement, as if the viewer is trapped inside the same narrow tunnel of light. The world beyond the flashlight might as well not exist. What makes this opening especially unsettling is how ordinary it feels. There are no sudden noises, no obvious threat, and no visible danger, and yet the urgency is undeniable. People don't run like this without a reason, especially late at night in the forest. The footage captures a moment of panic without revealing its cause, leaving the viewer to imagine what could possibly justify that level of fear. By the time running slows, the tension has already settled in. The video has done its work. It has placed the viewer inside a situation they don't understand. And that uncertainty becomes the foundation of everything that follows, and it refuses to let go long after the footage stops recording. One of the most noticeable aspects of the footage is what it avoids showing. Despite constant movement, the camera remains angled downward, rarely lifting beyond the ground direct ahead. This choice feels instinctive rather than deliberate, as if the person filming is unwilling to look too far forward. But from a psychological standpoint, this behavior makes sense, because when people are afraid, they often focus on immediate steps rather than distant surroundings, and looking up would mean acknowledging whatever might be waiting straight ahead. Keeping the camera low delays that confrontation, even if only for a few seconds. For the viewer, this framing creates sustained tension. The mind expects a reveal that never comes, scanning the edges of the frame for hints of danger. Each step forward feels loaded with anticipation, yet nothing changes. The ground remains the same. The leaves blur together. The flashlight flickers across familiar textures without explanation. This visual limitation also removes any sense of scale or orientation. Without seeing trees, landmarks, or the sky, It becomes impossible to understand where this is happening. The forest loses its identity and becomes a closed space, defined only by darkness and motion. It could be anywhere, and that ambiguity is deeply unsettling. The audience is left behind, trying to reconstruct an event that they can't see. By keeping the lens pointed at the ground, the video forces viewers to participate in the fear rather than observe it. You are not shown what to be afraid of. You are placed inside the uncertainty, sharing the same limited perspective as the person filming. And this restraint makes the eventual discovery feel unavoidable and unsettling. Eventually, the running stops. The shift is subtle at first, marked by slower footsteps and breathing that begins to steady. The camera's movement changes too, no longer jerky and swaying as the person walks. This transition feels important. Panic gives way to caution, as if the person has decided that speed is no longer useful. The flashlight continues to aim downward, tracing the ground ahead in short arcs. The silence between breaths grows longer. Nothing is said, but the absence of sound feels deliberate now, like listening for something rather than escaping it. This moment introduces a different kind of tension. Running suggests fear of pursuit, walking suggests approach. The person filming seems to be moving towards something even if they don't know what it is. The forest no longer feels like an obstacle course, it feels like a destination. As the pace slows, the viewer becomes aware of each time. Each step stretches the anticipation. The camera lingers longer on patches of ground, on shadows that refuse to resolve into shapes. The flashlight's beam trembles slightly, hinting at hesitation rather than exhaustion. Then the movement stops entirely. The camera holds still, pointed at the ground. For several seconds, nothing happens. This pause is unsettling because it feels intentional. The person is no longer reacting, they are deciding. The camera begins to move again, but this time slowly. The flashlight's beam lifts from the ground and settles onto a shape ahead. At first, it is difficult to interpret. It stands upright, interrupting the natural lines of the forest. Unlike trees, it has no branches, and unlike rocks, it does not blend into the ground. The object appears planted, fixed in place with intention. It looks like a pole. The camera does not rush closer. Instead, it holds the image at a cautious distance, as if waiting for a confirmation of what it is seeing. The stillness of the scene contrasts sharply with the frantic movement earlier, creating a sense that something irreversible has been reached. What makes this moment unsettling is its simplicity. There's no dramatic framing. The flashlight trembles slightly, indicating that the person filming is aware of the significance of what they are looking at. This is no longer random terrain. This is a focal point. Importantly, the camera treats the object with hesitation, not curiosity. It does not circle it or inspect it. It just observes. The realization does not arrive all at once. It unfolds over several seconds as the camera continues its slow upward movement. The frame shifts just enough for the viewer to recognize that the object is not alone. There is a human presence connected to it, motionless and unmistakable. The camera pauses again, as if the person filming needs time to process what they are seeing. There's no scream, no verbal reaction. The silence becomes heavy, pressing in on the moment. Whatever panic existed earlier has transformed into shock. What makes this reveal especially disturbing is its stillness. There's no struggle, no sound, and no attempt to intervene. The scene feels final. The viewer is not confronted with action, but with consequence. The camera does not linger long enough to provide detail. It just holds enough time for recognition. The filmer seems to understand that showing more would cross a line, both ethically and emotionally. And for the viewer, this moment triggers a flood of questions. Who is this person? How did they end up here? And why was the camera brought to this place at all? None of these questions are answered, and the video offers no clues. Importantly, the footage avoids sensationalism. There is no attempt to dramatize or frame the scene for effect. The recognition marks a point of no return. Earlier confusion snaps into focus. The running, the hesitation, the silence all lead here. From this point forward, the footage is no longer aimless. It becomes documentation of something terribly wrong. The final moments of the video move quickly because the camera stops offering the viewer access. After the brief moment of recognition, the footage cuts before anything further can be clearly observed, and this absence is not accidental. What follows is implied rather than displayed, and that implication carries more weight than explicit imagery ever could. There are reasons that certain footage cannot be shown on mainstream platforms like YouTube. Some material crosses ethical lines simply by being viewed, regardless of intent. In this case, restraint becomes an act of responsibility. The video ends before forcing the viewer into a position of witness to something they did not consent to see. This decision mirrors how the footage is handled by those who discuss it. The ending is referenced carefully, often indirectly, and sometimes not at all. The silence is intentional. It acknowledges the seriousness of what is captured without spreading harm further. And more importantly, the lack of visual detail does not weaken the impact. It actually intensifies it. The mind fills in what is missing, guided only by the fragments of already shown. This mental reconstruction is often more disturbing than any image could be, because it is personal and uncontrolled. The abrupt ending also denies closure. There is no explanation, no aftermath, and no indication of what happened next. The video refuses to satisfy curiosity. It documents a discovery, then withdraws, leaving the viewer alone with unresolved questions and scarred. By ending where it does, the video draws a line. It shows just enough to be understood, then stops. That restraint is part of what makes it linger. One of the most troubling aspects of the footage is the person behind the camera. Their identity is completely unknown, no face is shown, and no voice is heard. There are no clues about age, background, or intent. All of that exists is their movement through the forest and their reaction to what they find. Was the discovery accidental, or did the person filming know what they were going to encounter? The initial running suggests urgency, but it is unclear whether that urgency comes from fear, anticipation, or something else entirely. Without commentary, interpretation becomes unavoidable. Some viewers suggest that the filmer stumbled upon the scene by chance. Others question whether the camera was brought there deliberately. The video offers no confirmation either way. It does not guide the viewer toward innocence or guilt. It simply presents behavior and leaves meaning unresolved. What stands out is the lack of verbal response. There is no panic at the end and no attempt to call for help. This could be explained by shock, fear, or confusion. It could also suggest emotional distance. The footage does not clarify which interpretation is correct. The way the camera behaves feels human and imperfect. It shakes, hesitates, and pauses. And these imperfections make the recording feel genuine, yet they also deepen the mystery. If the person filming was overwhelmed, why record at all? If they were composed enough to record, why say nothing? And the absence of answers turns the filmer into a shadow presence. They are central to the footage, yet completely unknowable. This uncertainty shifts the unease away from what is seen and also towards the person who chose to keep recording. Equally unsettling is the absence of location. Like I said, the video offers no identifiable landmarks and no distinguishing features that could place it geographically. The forest is dense but generic, lacking anything that ties to it a specific location or country. There's no spoken language to analyze, no accent, no background noise beyond footsteps and breathing. Even the vegetation is difficult to identify in the low light. The environment resists classification, making it impossible to narrow down where the footage was captured. Without a defined setting, the event feels uncontained. It does not belong to a distant place or unfamiliar culture, so it could have happened anywhere. And that universality makes it more disturbing, not less. Attempts to trace the video's origins have yielded little. Metadata is missing or unreliable, and re-uploads strip away what little information might have existed. Each copy feels further removed from the moment it was recorded. In this way, the setting becomes part of the mystery, not because it is exotic or unfamiliar, but because it is deliberately ordinary. The video does not ask where it happened. It forces the viewer to accept that knowing may never be possible. The viewer is left carrying unanswered questions that cannot be resolved through further viewing or research. It also disrupts the boundary between observer and participant. By placing the viewer inside the perspective of the person filming, it removes emotional distance. Over time, the video becomes less about what it shows and more about what it represents. It serves as a reminder that everything recorded is meant to be seen, explained, or understood. Some footage exists simply because someone pressed record during a moment that should not have been captured. This is why the video continues to unsettle. It does not encourage analysis for the sake of entertainment. It lingers because it exposes a reality that feels out of place. And in the end, the most disturbing aspect is not the content itself, but the knowledge that such moments can be captured and left unresolved, and quietly circulating without explanation.